In the modest garage on the outskirts of Silicon Valley, Tom Martinez spends his days fixing cars and his nights wondering if he was meant for something more. When 8-year-old Sarah wheels into his shop one afternoon, her eyes fixed longingly on the children riding bikes outside, something changes in the old mechanic's heart. Using salvaged parts and decades of experience, Tom begins a secret project, building a custom mini car that Sarah can control entirely by hand. The day she first drives independently, her laughter echoes through the garage like music. But what Tom doesn't know is that Sarah's mother has been searching for him, and she's about to change his life in ways he never imagined possible. What could a tech billionaire want from a simple mechanic in a small-town garage? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The brass bell above Martinez Auto Repair's door hadn't changed in 30 years. Neither had the toolbox sitting beneath the workbench, a weathered testament to craftsmanship passed down from father to son. Tom Martinez ran his calloused fingers over the worn leather handle, just as he did every morning, before reaching inside for the 10mm socket wrench that had helped fix countless engines. Morning light filtered through the dusty windows, casting long shadows across the concrete floor. The air carried the familiar blend of motor oil, rubber, and decades of mechanical devotion. At 62, Tom moved with the deliberate grace of someone who knew every inch of his domain. Each tool had its place, each creaking floorboard its story. "Morning, Mr. Martinez." Carlos, the teenager from 2 blocks over, was already waiting outside. His '89 Civic had been making that clicking sound again. "Think you can take a look?" Tom smiled, his weathered face crinkling at the corners. "Timing belt's probably just loose again. Come on in, kid." He'd been fixing cars for Carlos's family since before the boy was born, charging only what they could afford. That's how things worked in this part of town. Community over profit, relationships over receipts. Inside his office, a dusty engineering degree from San Jose State hung beside photographs of cars he'd brought back from the brink. He'd graduated top of his class in '85, dreams of designing revolutionary vehicles dancing in his head. Life had other plans. When his father's health failed, the family garage called him home. Sometimes late at night he still sketched designs in an old notebook, innovations that might have been. The morning rolled on like countless others before. Mrs. Chen's Corolla needed new brake pads. Joe from the diner brought in his delivery van, the transmission slipping again. Tom's hands worked steadily, his mind occasionally drifting to the half-finished sketches in his drawer. "Tom, you're a lifesaver," Rita, his part-time receptionist, called out as she arrived with coffee and morning papers. At 70, she managed his appointments with the efficiency of someone half her age. "Mr. Peterson called about his Mercedes again, says the check engine light's back on." "Probably didn't listen about the premium gas," Tom sighed, wiping his hands on a shop rag. "Schedule him for tomorrow morning. And Rita, tell him this time I'm putting it in writing." The wall clock ticked steadily toward noon. Through the open garage door, Tom watched Silicon Valley life rush by, gleaming Teslas and autonomous vehicles sharing roads with the aging sedans and pickups that were his bread and butter. Sometimes it felt like the world was accelerating while his garage remained frozen in time, a mechanical museum of sorts. Yet there was pride in this work, in knowing that every car that left his garage was truly fixed, not just patched up to make it to the next service appointment. His father had taught him that. The value of doing things right, of understanding every component, every connection. Lunchtime brought the usual crowd to his workbench. Sam from the hardware store, Mike who ran the local tow service, and occasionally Rita, sharing sandwiches and stories, solving the world's problems one conversation at a time. Today's topic, the changing neighborhood, the new tech startups pushing out old businesses. "Times are changing, Tom," Sam remarked, unwrapping his sandwich. "My nephew's making 6 figures writing code. Meanwhile, we're here, fixing what we can." Tom nodded, but his eyes drifted to the sketches partially visible in his open drawer. Maybe he was meant for something more, but then again, maybe this was exactly where he needed to be, keeping his community moving, one repair at a time. The Wednesday afternoon sun cast long shadows through the garage when Tom first heard the soft whir of electric wheels. He was deep under the hood of a Volkswagen when Rita called out, "Tom, you've got visitors." Looking up, he saw them. A young girl in a motorized wheelchair, accompanied by a woman in scrubs. The girl's wheelchair was sleek and modern, a far cry from the clunky models he remembered from the VA hospital where his father spent his final years. "I'm Maria, Sarah's caregiver," the woman in scrubs introduced herself. "The chair's been making this strange noise when we turn left. The manual says to see a certified technician, but..." She glanced at their surroundings apologetically. "The nearest one is 2 hours away." Sarah sat quietly, her bright eyes taking in every detail of the garage. Unlike most kids her age, who usually squirmed with impatience, she studied the tools on the wall with genuine curiosity. Tom noticed her hands, small but strong, resting on the wheelchair's controls with natural familiarity. "Let's take a look," Tom said, grabbing his diagnostic tools. As he examined the chair, Sarah's attention drifted to the garage's open door. Outside, neighborhood kids rode past on bicycles, their laughter carrying on the afternoon breeze. Tom caught the longing in her eyes, a look he recognized from his own reflection on late nights spent sketching dreams that never came to be. "You, like machines?" he asked, noticing how she tracked his movements as he worked. Sarah nodded enthusiastically. "I want to be an engineer," she said, her voice clear and determined. "Mom says I can do anything, just differently," she demonstrated, by expertly maneuvering her chair in a tight circle. "See, I learned to drive this in 2 days." Tom's hands paused on the wheelchair's mechanism. There was something in her tone, not self-pity, but pure determination, that struck a chord. He thought of his own engineering degree gathering dust on the wall, of all the designs he'd tucked away in drawers. "The problem's in the left servo motor," he explained, speaking directly to Sarah rather than her caregiver. "See this part here? It's like the steering wheel in a car, but it uses electricity instead of mechanical force." Sarah leaned forward, absorbing every word. As he worked, she asked questions that surprised him with their insight. Why did the EJ motor make that sound? How did the controller know which way to turn? Each answer seemed to light a new spark in her eyes. "All fixed," Tom announced finally, running a last diagnostic check. "Should turn smooth as silk now." Sarah tested the repair, executing a perfect figure-8 pattern in the garage. "It's better than new," she exclaimed. Then, almost as an afterthought, "I wish I could drive a real car someday." The words hung in the air as Maria helped Sarah put her backpack on the chair's hooks. Tom watched them leave, Sarah taking one last look at the kids on their bikes. Long after they'd gone, he found himself staring at his old notebook of designs, mind churning with possibilities he hadn't considered in years. That night, sleep proved elusive. Tom lay awake, thinking about Sarah's words, about the look in her eyes when she watched those bikes. He thought about his own dreams, shelved but never forgotten. At 3 in the morning, he got up and went to his garage, pulling out the notebook he'd filled with sketches over the years. Under the soft glow of his desk lamp, Tom opened to a fresh page. His pencil hovered for a moment before touching the paper. Then, slowly at first, but with growing confidence, he began to draw. The first design sketch took shape under Tom's lamp at 4:30 a.m., a miniature car framework with modified controls that could be operated entirely by hand. He'd worked through the night, fueled by coffee and forgotten possibilities, filling page after page with technical drawings and calculations. "You're here early," Rita remarked when she arrived, eyeing the empty coffee pot. She knew that look in his eyes. She'd seen it decades ago when he'd first returned from engineering school. Before life had steered him towards simpler repairs. "Just catching up on some paperwork," Tom said, carefully sliding his notebook into a drawer. He wasn't ready to share this yet, not until he knew it was possible. After hours, Tom transformed the garage's back corner into his workshop. He'd learned long ago to keep parts that might be useful someday. Motors from power windows, high-grade aluminum scraps, control mechanisms from luxury vehicles. Now, spread across his workbench, these forgotten pieces began to look like possibilities. The steering system came first. Tom modified a power steering unit from a scrapped golf cart, reducing its resistance and adapting it for hand control. His fingers, stiff from years of wrenching on engines, remembered their old precision as he soldered delicate electronic connections. "What are you working on back there?" Sam asked one afternoon, trying to peek around the tarp Tom had hung. "Just organizing some old inventory," Tom replied, but his mind was already racing through the next phase of modifications. He'd need to custom fabricate the frame, something light enough for the small electric motor, but sturdy enough to be safe. Late at night, after the last customer had gone, Tom would lose himself in the project. He adapted a seat from a child's pedal car, reinforcing it with additional support. The hand controls took shape slowly, a delicate balance of responsiveness and safety. Each component he added was tested dozens of times, his engineer's mind unwilling to compromise on precision. But challenges emerged. The first control system prototype proved too stiff for small hands. The second was too sensitive. Tom found himself returning to his old engineering textbooks, reviewing principles of mechanical advantage and electronic control theory he hadn't thought about in years. "You've been different lately," Rita observed one morning, setting his coffee on the workbench. "Like you've got a secret." She smiled knowingly but didn't pry. In 40 years of friendship, she'd learned when to let Tom work things out on his own. The breakthrough came 3 weeks in, at 2 a.m. on a Wednesday. Tom had been struggling with the acceleration mechanism. Standard car controls required too much force for a child. As he sat back, rubbing his tired eyes, they fell on an old Xbox controller one of his younger customers had left behind months ago. "Of course," he whispered, reaching for his notebook. "The proportional thumb controls." That was the answer. By midnight the next day, he had adapted the controller's mechanism into a sleek hand throttle that even his arthritic fingers could operate with ease. Progress came in small victories: a smoother turning radius, a more responsive brake system, a frame design that would allow easy access from a wheelchair. Each solution led to new challenges, but Tom found himself energized in a way he hadn't felt in decades. 1 month in, he stayed late again, making minute adjustments to the seat support. Through the garage's open door, he could hear children playing in the evening light. The sound reminded him of Sarah's expression as she watched the bikes pass by. He adjusted the support bracket one more time, his movements precise and purposeful. The project was taking shape, but more than metal and motors was being transformed in that back corner. With each modification and refinement, Tom felt something. Awakening. The engineer he'd almost forgotten he could be, the innovator he'd once dreamed of becoming. The modified hand controls lay on Tom's workbench like a piece of abstract sculpture, an elegant fusion of repurposed parts that had taken weeks to perfect. He flexed his fingers around the joystick, testing its resistance. Too much force required, and Sarah might tire quickly. Too little, and control could become dangerous. "Still here?" Mike's voice startled him. The tow truck driver had stopped by to drop off a damaged Prius. "It's past 9, Tom. Just finishing up some work," Tom replied, casually draping a shop rag over the controls. But Mike's eyes had already caught the unusual assembly of parts scattered across the bench. "That doesn't look like any car part I've ever seen," Mike said, picking up what appeared to be a modified steering mechanism. Tom hesitated. Mike had been a friend for 20 years. Maybe it was time to share the burden. "Close the door," he said finally. "I want to show you something." As Tom explained the project, Mike's expression shifted from curiosity to understanding. "The little girl in the wheelchair," he nodded. "I've seen her around the neighborhood." "It's probably crazy," Tom admitted, spreading out his design sketches. "I haven't built anything from scratch since engineering school." Mike studied the drawings with surprising intensity. "My sister's kid. She's got cerebral palsy, something like this." He trailed off, lost in thought. "Need an extra pair of hands?" That night they worked until midnight. Mike's experience with heavy machinery proved invaluable as they modified the frame, strengthening key stress points while keeping the weight manageable. When they finally called it quits, both men were covered in metal shavings and sporting matching grins. But the next day brought fresh challenges. The electric motor they'd salvaged from an old golf cart wasn't providing smooth acceleration. Tom spent hours adjusting the controller, only to have it fail during testing. Each solution seemed to spawn new problems. "Maybe we need to rethink the power system," Mike suggested during one of their late-night sessions. "My nephew's got one of those high-end remote control cars. The motors they use these days, they're something else." Tom found himself learning about new technologies he'd never considered. LED displays that could show battery life and speed. Modern safety sensors that could prevent collisions. Each innovation required more research, more late nights poring over technical specifications. The project consumed his free time. Regular customers began to notice the changes, the dark circles. Under his eyes, the distracted manner during simple repairs. Rita started bringing him extra coffee without being asked, her concerned glances following him as he disappeared behind the tarp. "Whatever you're doing back there," she said one morning, "just make sure you're taking care of yourself too." 6 weeks in, Tom hit a wall. The hand controls worked perfectly on the bench, but when integrated with the power system, they became erratic. Frustrated, he spent an entire Sunday testing and retesting connections, getting nowhere. That evening, preparing to lock up, he noticed a family passing by the garage, a father teaching his daughter to ride a bike, holding the seat as she wobbled forward. The girl's laughter echoed off the walls, and Tom felt a renewed surge of determination. He returned to his workbench, mind churning. What if he was approaching this wrong? He'd been thinking like a car mechanic, trying to adapt traditional vehicle controls. But Sarah wasn't going to be driving a traditional vehicle. Tom pulled out fresh paper and started over. This time, he thought about how Sarah handled her wheelchair, the intuitive way she managed the controls, the smooth precision of her movements. By morning, he had redesigned the entire interface. The new control system took shape slowly but surely, a combination of modern electronics and time-tested mechanical principles. Tom found himself drawing on everything he'd learned over the decades, not just his engineering education, but the practical wisdom gained from countless repairs. Mike continued to help when he could, and his enthusiasm proved contagious. "You know what this could mean," he'd say during their work sessions, not just for Sarah, but for other kids too. Tom tried not to think that far ahead. For now, he focused on each small victory, the perfectly balanced steering, the smoothly ramping acceleration, the safety systems tested and retested until he was certain they were foolproof. Looking at the nearly completed project one evening, Tom realized something had shifted. The garage no longer felt like a place where dreams had been put aside. Instead, it had become a workshop where new ones were taking shape, one careful modification at a time. The completed minicar sat in the center of Tom's garage, catching the morning light. He'd spent the entire night doing final checks, testing every connection, every safety feature, triple-checking the hand controls. Now, looking at his creation, he felt equal parts pride and nervousness. "It's beautiful," Rita whispered. She'd arrived early to find Tom already at work, and he'd finally shown her what had been happening behind the tarp all these weeks. The vehicle was smaller than a golf cart, but larger than a toy car, its metallic blue paint gleaming under the fluorescent lights. The custom seat was positioned perfectly for wheelchair transfer, and the hand controls looked both sophisticated and inviting. "Maria's bringing Sarah by at 10. Tom said, adjusting the safety harness one more time. If everything goes well, it will, Rita assured him, squeezing his shoulder. You've put your heart into this. The morning crept by with agonizing slowness. Tom turned away 3 customers, claiming equipment problems. He couldn't bear the thought of being elbow-deep in an oil change when Sarah arrived. Mike showed up at 9:30, unable to stay away. "Had to see this," he said, circling the vehicle admiringly. "You've done something special here, Tom." At precisely 10:05, the familiar whir of Sarah's wheelchair approached the garage. Tom's heart jumped as he heard Maria's voice. "Sarah, Mr. Martinez asked if we could stop by this morning. He has something to show you." Sarah entered the garage, and for a moment, everything stood still. Her eyes went wide as she took in the mini-car, its custom controls gleaming invitingly. Is that?" she began, unable to finish the question. "It's for you," Tom said softly, "if you'd like to try it." Sarah's wheelchair moved forward, slowly, almost reverently. Her small hand reached out to touch the smooth metal of the frame. "You built this?" she whispered. "Well, Mike helped." Tom smiled, nodding toward his friend. "Want to see how it works?" The next few minutes were spent explaining the controls, how the joystick managed both steering and speed, how the safety systems would prevent any sudden movements, how the special seat was designed for easy transfer. Sarah absorbed every detail, her eyes bright with understanding. "Can I?" she asked, looking up at Maria. The transfer from wheelchair to minicar went smoothly. Tom and Maria had practiced this part repeatedly. Once settled in the seat, Sarah's hands found the controls naturally, as if they'd been designed specifically for her, which, of course, they had been. "Remember," Tom instructed, "gentle movements at first. The controls are very responsive." He stepped back, heart pounding. This was the moment of truth. Sarah's first movement was tentative, a slight forward motion that brought a gasp of delight to her lips. The car responded perfectly, gliding forward with smooth precision. Encouraged, she attempted a gentle turn, and the vehicle curved gracefully. To the left. "You're a natural," Mike called out, grinning broadly. Growing more confident, Sarah completed a careful circle in the garage. Then another. Her smile grew with each successful maneuver. Tom watched, barely breathing, as she mastered the controls with increasing assurance. Can we try outside?" she asked hopefully. Tom nodded, his throat tight with emotion. He and Mike pushed open the garage doors wide, creating a clear path to the parking area. Sarah guided the mini-car forward into the sunlight, where neighborhood kids had already begun to gather, drawn by the unusual sight. In the morning light, Sarah executed perfect figure eights, her laughter ringing out across the parking lot. The neighborhood children watched in amazement as she maneuvered the vehicle with growing confidence, her joy infectious. "Mr. Martinez," Sarah called out after several minutes of successful driving. "Thank you." Her eyes shone with tears of happiness, reflecting the same moisture Tom found in his own. Rita appeared at his side, pressing a tissue into his hand. 30 years of fixing cars," she said softly, "and this might be your finest repair job yet." Tom watched as Sarah continued to drive, her movements becoming more natural with each passing minute. In her smile, he saw not just joy, but freedom. The same freedom he'd found in bringing this dream to life. It started with a cell phone video. Jenny Chen, whose mother's Corolla Tom had been maintaining for years, happened to be walking by when Sarah made her first outdoor drive. The 16-year-old instinctively pulled out her phone, capturing the moment when Sarah's laugh of pure joy echoed across the parking lot. "This is amazing, Mr. Martinez," Jenny called out, her phone still recording. "Can I post this? People need to see this." Tom hesitated. He was an old-school mechanic who still advertised in the local penny saver. Social media wasn't his territory. But Sarah's face was radiant as she executed another perfect turn, and somehow saying no didn't feel right. The video went up that evening. "Local mechanic builds custom car for girl in wheelchair engineering to kindness, to disability." By morning, it had 10,000 views. "Tom?" Rita burst into the garage the next day, waving her tablet. "Have you seen this? Your videos everywhere!" She thrust the device at him, showing comments flooding in from around the world. "This is what engineering should be about. Someone give this man a research grant. My daughter has cerebral palsy. We need this." The local news van arrived. Before lunch, Tom tried to wave them away, but Sarah's mother had already given permission for her daughter to be interviewed. The reporter's eyes lit up when Sarah demonstrated the hand controls, explaining the engineering with surprising technical accuracy. "Mr. Martinez taught me how it all works," she beamed at the camera. "He made it so I could drive just like everyone else." The story aired that evening. Silicon Valley mechanic engineer's hope. Tom watched it at home, uncomfortable with the attention, but moved by Sarah's infectious enthusiasm on screen. His phone started ringing immediately. Old engineering classmates, fellow mechanics, parents of disabled children. "Tom," Mike called early the next morning, "you need to see these emails." He'd helped Tom set up a proper business email years ago, which Tom rarely checked. Now it was flooded with messages. Mother in Oregon, whose son had lost mobility in an accident. A veterans organization interested in adaptive vehicles. 3 different engineering firms asking about patents and licensing. "I didn't build it for this," Tom protested, overwhelmed by the attention. "I just wanted to help Sarah." But the momentum was building. The video had been picked up by major news outlets. Online forums were dissecting his design, praising its elegance and simplicity. Parents of disabled children were sharing their own stories, asking how they could get something similar for their kids. A week after the first video, Tom arrived at his garage to find a crowd waiting. Parents with children in wheelchairs, engineering, students, local reporters. Sarah was there too, proudly demonstrating the mini-car's features to an awestruck audience. "Mr. Martinez," called out a woman who'd driven up from Los Angeles, "how much would you charge to build one for my daughter?" Tom looked at the hope in their eyes, feeling the weight of possibilities he'd never considered. This wasn't just about one car or one child anymore. Something bigger was taking shape, something that reached far beyond his small garage. That evening, after everyone had gone, Tom sat at his workbench, looking at his father's old toolbox. Next to it lay printouts of emails, technical questions, and heartfelt pleas from parents across the country. His notebook was open to fresh sketches, improvements and variations sparked by conversations throughout the day. His phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Thank you for making my dream come true. Now can we help make other kids' dreams come true too?" Tom picked up his pencil, began sketching again. Maybe this was what he'd been meant for all along, not designing fancy cars for Silicon Valley, but building something that could change lives, one adaptation at a time. What he didn't know was that across town, in a sleek high-rise office, Sarah's mother was watching the viral video for the 3rd time, her mind racing with possibilities. The sound came first, a distant thrum that grew steadily louder, drowning. At the usual morning garage noise, Tom was underneath a Toyota when Rita burst in, her voice pitched high with excitement. "Tom, there's a helicopter. It's actually landing in the parking lot." He rolled out from under the car, wiping his hands on his work pants. The beating of rotors had become deafening, and through the open garage door he could see papers and debris swirling in the downdraft. The sleek black helicopter touched down with precise control, its blades slowly spinning to a stop. A small crowd had already gathered, neighbors, customers, kids on bikes. Mike pulled up in his tow truck, mouth agape. The helicopter's door opened, and a woman stepped out. She wore a tailored business suit that probably cost more than Tom's monthly earnings, but it was her face that caught his attention. He'd seen those same determined eyes and sharp features before, on Sarah. "Mr. Martinez?" She strode toward him, hand extended, her heels clicking purposefully on the concrete. "I'm Catherine Chen, Sarah's mother. Though I suspect you've figured that out already." Tom shook her hand, acutely aware of the grease under his fingernails. "Just Tom is fine, Mom." She smiled, pulling a business card from her jacket pocket. It was elegant, minimalist, just her name and CEO, Adaptive Futures Technology, in sleek silver lettering. "I've been looking for you, Tom," she said, her voice carrying the practiced authority of someone used to commanding rooms much larger than his garage. "Or rather, I've been looking for someone like you for the past 3 years. Catherine gestured to the helicopter. "Mind if we talk inside? I have something to show you." The interior was all leather and polished steel. Catherine opened a laptop, bringing up technical specifications and market analyses. "We've been developing adaptive technology for children with disabilities. Smart wheelchairs, robotic assistance devices, neural interfaces. But what you built for Sarah," she paused, emotion briefly cracking her professional veneer, "you solved problems our entire R&D department couldn't crack." Tom shifted uncomfortably in the plush seat. "I just wanted to help her drive." "Exactly," Catherine's eyes lit up. "You approached it as a human problem, not just a technical one. Our engineers were trying to reinvent the wheel. You just made it work differently." She pulled up another screen. "Have you seen how many families are asking about your design?" She didn't wait for an answer, launching into a proposal that made Tom's head spin. A new division of her company, focused on adaptive vehicles for children, state-of-the-art facilities, a team of engineers at his disposal, full creative control. "I don't need another corporate engineer," she said, noting his overwhelmed expression. "I need someone who understands both the mechanics and the heart of what we're trying to do, someone who can see the person behind the problem." Through the helicopter's window, Tom could see his garage, the faded sign, the old toolbox visible. Through the door, the wall where his engineering degree hung. 30 years of fixing what was broken, making do with what he had. "What about my customers?" he asked. "Some of these families, they depend on me." Catherine's expression softened. "Tom, think bigger. What if instead of fixing their cars, you could help their children? Not just Sarah, but thousands of kids like her." She handed him another document, preliminary patent applications for his design. "You've already done the hard part. You've proven it works. Now let me help you bring it to every child who needs it." Tom stared at the papers, his weathered hands trembling slightly. Through the window he could see Rita and Mike watching anxiously from the garage doorway. Beyond them, neighborhood kids were still circled around the helicopter, their faces pressed against the chain-link fence. "I'm not much for corporate politics," he said finally. Catherine laughed. "Trust me, what you did with that mini car, that's worth more than all the corporate maneuvering in Silicon Valley. I'm not asking you to change who you are, Tom. I'm asking you to be exactly who you are, just for more children who need you." She held out her hand, a simple silver pen, catching the morning light. "What do you say? Ready to build something bigger?" The partnership agreement sat unopened on Tom's workbench for 3 days. He'd read it through once, carefully, then set it aside to think. Catherine had given him a week to decide, but the weight of the decision pressed on him every hour. "You're going to wear a hole in that floor," Rita observed, watching him pace the garage. It was Sunday morning, and for the first time in 30 years, the closed sign hung in the window. Tom needed time to think. The morning light caught the silver lettering of Catherine's business card, still propped against his father's toolbox. 2 worlds colliding in his garage. What would Dad say? He wondered aloud, running his fingers over the worn leather of the toolbox. "He'd say you've spent enough time fixing other people's dreams," Rita answered softly. "Maybe it's time to build your own." The bell above the door chimed, Mike arriving with coffee and donuts. "Thought you might need reinforcements," he said, setting them down. "Half the neighborhood's talking about it. Mrs. Chen's helicopter made quite an impression." Tom smiled despite himself. "Subtle, she's not." "But she's right," Mike said, settling onto a worn shop stool. "You've got something special here, Tom. That mini car, it's not just about Sarah anymore." As if on cue, Tom's phone buzzed with another email notification. They hadn't stopped coming since the video went viral. Parents sharing stories, sending pictures of their children, asking if there was any way. "I'm a mechanic," Tom protested, weakly. "Not some Silicon Valley innovator." "Really?" Rita raised an eyebrow, pointing to the corner where Sarah's minicar still sat. "Because that looks like innovation to me." The morning wore on, and more visitors arrived. Sam from the hardware store brought sandwiches. Jenny Chen, who'd posted the original video, stopped by with a printout of comments from parents around the world. Even Mr. Peterson, whose Mercedes was perpetually troubled, came to offer his thoughts. "Times change, Tom," the elderly man said wisely. "Question is, do we change with them?" Late afternoon found Tom alone in the garage, surrounded by the ghosts of decisions past and future. He picked up his father's wrench, the one they'd used together on his first repair job. "Fix what's broken," his father had always said, but maybe some things needed more than fixing. He opened his notebook, flipping through the pages of designs he'd sketched since building Sarah's car. Improvements, variations, new ideas that woke him in the middle of the night. Each one represented a child who could know the freedom Sarah had found. The sound of small electric wheels announced Sarah's arrival. She maneuvered her wheelchair through the open door, followed by Maria. "Mom said you're thinking about it," Sarah said, her eyes bright with hope. "About helping other kids like me?" Tom nodded, unable to speak for a moment. "When you were building my car," Sarah continued, "you told me that engineering was about solving problems to help people. Remember?" "I remember." "Well," she grinned, executing a perfect spin in her wheelchair, "looks like you've got a lot more people to help now." Tom looked around his garage, at the tools that had served him faithfully for decades, at the walls that held so many memories. Then he looked at Sarah, at the freedom and joy his work had given her. He picked up the partnership agreement, feeling its weight in his hands. Not just paper and ink, but possibilities. Dreams waiting to be built. "Your mother drives a hard bargain," he said to Sarah, reaching for a pen. "She says that's how you know something's worth doing," Sarah replied with a knowing smile. As Tom signed his name, he felt something shift. Not an ending, but a transformation, like the moment when a repair finally clicks into place, when broken parts become whole again. Through the garage door, he could see the faded sign that had carried his father's name, then his. Soon it would change again. But maybe that was okay. Maybe that was exactly what it had been waiting for all along. The architectural plans spread. Across Tom's workbench looked like something from a science fiction movie. The old garage would remain. Catherine had understood immediately when Tom insisted on keeping it. But beside it would rise a state-of-the-art facility, design studios, fabrication workshops, testing areas, all dedicated to creating adaptive vehicles for children. "What do you think?" Catherine asked, watching Tom study the blueprints. "We can modify anything that doesn't work for you." Tom traced the lines with a calloused finger, his mind already seeing possibilities. "The testing area needs to be bigger," he said finally. "And these workstations, they should be adjustable. Some of our engineers might be in wheelchairs themselves." Catherine smiled at the word, "our." It had been 2 weeks since Tom signed the agreement, and he was already thinking like a leader. The transition began slowly, then accelerated. Tom's regular customers were surprised to find letters in their mailboxes, recommendations for trusted mechanics in the area, along with a personal note explaining the change. Mr. Peterson actually cried when he read his. "You fix more than just cars, Tom," the old man said, stopping by one last time. "You fixed our faith in people." The construction crew arrived on a Monday, setting up barriers around the expansion site. Tom kept the garage operating, but now his repairs had a different purpose. Each car that came in became a study in adaptation possibilities. How could this steering system be modified? What could this transmission teach them about smooth power delivery? Catherine brought in a team of young engineers, but insisted they work in the garage first. "Learn from Tom," she told them. "He sees solutions where we see problems." The engineers were skeptical at first. Ivy League graduates paired with a self-taught mechanic. But Tom's practical knowledge proved invaluable. He taught them to think with their hands, to feel the mechanics of a problem. Book learning's important, he told them, but machines talk to you if you know how to listen. Sarah became a regular visitor, her insights helping bridge the gap between technical capability and practical need. She took particular interest in the design software, quickly learning to manipulate 3D models with the same skill she showed in her mini-car. "We should make it customizable," she suggested one afternoon, manipulating a design on the computer. "Every kid's different. The controls should adapt to them, not the other way around." The idea sparked a breakthrough. Tom spent a night sketching a modular control system that could be configured in multiple ways. The engineers were excited. This could revolutionize not just their vehicles, but adaptive technology in general. Rita adapted to her new role as office manager of the expanding operation, bringing order to the chaos of construction and creation. "Just don't expect me to use one of those fancy coffee machines," she warned when she saw the break room plans. Mike's tow truck became a regular sight, now bringing in vehicles for research instead of repairs. He had a knack for finding cars with unique control systems that might inspire new adaptations. The days grew longer, filled with meetings and design reviews, but Tom found himself energized rather than exhausted. Each morning brought new challenges, new possibilities. The engineering degree on his wall no longer felt like a reminder of dreams deferred. It was a foundation for dreams being built. One evening, after the construction crews had gone home, Tom sat in his father's old chair, surveying the changing landscape of his world. The garage lights cast long shadows across the new foundation next door, where tomorrow would bring more progress, more possibility. His phone buzzed with a text from Catherine. "Design team loved your modular control concept. Patent office preliminary review looks good. You're changing the game, Tom." He smiled, picking up his notebook. The pages were filled with new sketches now, each one a possibility waiting to be born. Through the open door, he could hear the distant sound of Sarah testing the latest prototype, her laughter carrying on the evening breeze. The world was changing around him, but here in his garage, surrounded by tools and dreams and the ghosts of countless repairs, Tom felt more at home than ever. He wasn't just fixing things anymore. He was building tomorrow, one adaptation at a time. The progress report on Tom's desk told a story of success in numbers and charts. 6 prototype vehicles completed, 15 more in development, patent applications filed, construction ahead of schedule. But numbers couldn't capture the tension headache building behind his eyes. "We need to talk about the control system." Derek, the lead engineer from MIT, stood in the doorway of Tom's office, a space he still wasn't used to having. "The safety certification team has concerns." Tom rubbed his temples. They'd been over this 3 times already. "The system works. We've tested it extensively." "In garage conditions," Derek countered. "But for mass production, we need to make it so safe it's unusable." Tom stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "Come with me." He led Derek through the construction zone to the original garage, where Sarah was helping another girl, Emma, try the latest prototype. Emma's cerebral palsy made her movements jerky, unpredictable, the very things Derek's team worried about. "Watch," Tom said quietly. Emma's hand gripped the modified controls. The first movement was shaky, but the system compensated smoothly, responding to her intention rather than the precision of her motion. Her face lit up as the vehicle moved exactly as she wanted. "That's what we're building," Tom said. "Not just safety features, freedom." Derek's expression softened, but his concerns remained. "The liability issues can be solved," Tom interrupted, "but not by making it too complicated for the kids who need it most." The exchange highlighted a growing challenge. Tom's practical, hands-on approach sometimes clashed with the corporate requirements Catherine's company had to meet. Each innovation needed testing, documentation, certification, processes that seemed to drag on forever. "You look tired," Rita observed, bringing him coffee later that afternoon. The construction noise from next door had become a constant backdrop, punctuated by the beeping of backing trucks and the clang of steel beams. "Growing pains," Tom sighed, showing her the latest budget report. Equipment costs were running higher than expected. Some custom parts had to be manufactured specially, driving up expenses. Catherine was supportive, but Tom felt the pressure to deliver results. His phone buzzed constantly now with emails and messages, parents wanting updates, investors asking questions, team members needing decisions. Sometimes he missed the simplicity of fixing carburetors. The prototype room had become a source of both pride and frustration. 10 vehicles in various stages of completion, each representing a different challenge. One designed for a child with limited upper body strength. Another adapted for someone who could only use one hand. Each solution sparked new ideas, but also new complications. Mr. Martinez, a young engineer, Jenny, not to be confused with Jenny Chen from the neighborhood, hovered in the doorway. "The supply chain team says the custom actuators are delayed. Something about semiconductor shortages." Before Tom could respond, his computer chimed with an urgent email. The safety certification team had more questions. 3 conference calls were scheduled for tomorrow. The prototype review meeting needed to be rescheduled. "Get Mike," Tom said suddenly. 20 minutes later, he and Mike were under the hood of an old Chevy, the familiar work a temporary escape from the chaos. "Remember when the hardest part of our day was finding a stripped bolt?" Mike chuckled, handing Tom a wrench. "Now it's finding enough hours in the day." Tom straightened up, wiping his hands. "Catherine wants to start production by next quarter. The team's pushing back, saying we need more testing. Parents are asking when they can place orders. And every time we solve one problem, 3 more pop up." "Sounds like you're building something worth building," Mike said quietly. The words hit home. Tom looked around at what his garage had become. Through the doors of the prototype room, he could see Emma still practicing in her adapted vehicle, her mother wiping away tears of joy. In the design studio, Sarah was showing a new engineer how a control layout could be improved. The construction site next door represented not just growth but possibility. His father's old toolbox sat in its place of honor on his new desk, a bridge between past and future. Maybe that's what he needed to be too. A bridge between the practical wisdom of his garage days and the innovative potential of what they were, a building. Tom picked up his phone and started typing. "Team meeting tomorrow morning, bringing everyone together. Engineers, safety team, production. Time to find a way forward that works for everyone." The headache was still there, but now it felt more like growing strength and growing pain. The thank you letter arrived on crisp white paper decorated with careful crayon drawings of cars and hearts. Tom pinned it to the bulletin board in the new facility's entryway, right next to Sarah's original design suggestions. "Dear Mr. Martinez, and everyone at Adaptive Dreams," the childish handwriting began. "Yesterday was the best day of my life. I got to drive all by myself." The letter was from Jason, a 7-year-old from Oregon. He'd been their first official client outside of Sarah, the first child to receive a production model of what they now called the Freedom Driver. Tom remembered the day Jason arrived with his parents. The boy had been born with a rare muscular condition that left him with limited mobility in his arms and legs. His mother had seen the viral video of Sarah and contacted them immediately. "He's been watching that video every day," she told Tom, asking when he can drive like Sarah. The team had worked for weeks to customize the vehicle for Jason's specific needs. The control system required special modification to accommodate his limited grip strength. Derek's safety team had outdone themselves, incorporating sensors that could detect and compensate for involuntary muscle movements. The day of delivery had brought everyone together. Engineers who usually stayed in the design room came out to watch. Rita arranged flowers. Even Catherine flew in from a board meeting to be present. Jason's first sight of his Freedom Driver had been captured on video, a moment that would later be shared with potential investors and clients. The metallic green paint, his favorite color, gleamed under the showroom lights. The seat was positioned at the perfect height for transfer. From his wheelchair, "Is it really mine?" he'd whispered, eyes wide with wonder. Tom knelt beside his wheelchair. "Want to try it out?" The next hour remained etched in Tom's memory. Jason's tentative first touch of the controls, the look of concentration on his face as he learned the system, the moment when it all clicked and he made his first complete circle around the testing area. "Mom! Dad! Look at me!" The joy in his voice had brought tears to more than a few eyes in the room. Now, a week later, Jason's letter continued. "My friends at school couldn't believe it when I drove up to the playground. Everyone wanted to know how it works. I told them about you and how you make dreams come true." The letter was accompanied by photos. Jason in his freedom driver at the park. Jason with his friends gathered around, admiring the controls. Jason grinning beside his father, who was checking out the vehicle's mechanical features. "The best part," the letter went on, "is that now my little sister wants to race with me. Mom says maybe you can build one for her too, even though she doesn't need the special controls. She just thinks it's cool." Tom smiled at that part. They'd already started discussions about a companion line of children's vehicles, ones that could be used by kids with and without disabilities, promoting inclusive play. The final photo showed Jason's entire class gathered around the freedom driver, with Jason in the center, beaming with pride. No longer the kid who couldn't participate, but the kid with the coolest ride in school. Catherine had been right about the impact they could have. This wasn't just about mobility, it was about changing how these children saw themselves and how others saw them. Derek stuck his head in the door. "Testing results are in from Jason's vehicle. The usage data is incredible. The adaptive response system is performing even better than we projected." Tom nodded, but his eyes were still on the letter. Technical success was important, but this crayon-decorated testament to joy, this was what really mattered. "We should share this with the team," he said finally. "Remind everyone what we're really building here." That afternoon, Tom made copies of the letter and photos for everyone involved in the project. Engineers, fabricators, safety testers, even the construction crew working on the expansion. Sometimes, in the midst of technical challenges and corporate requirements, it was easy to lose sight of their true purpose. The original letter stayed pinned to the bulletin board where every visitor could see it, a reminder that success wasn't measured in patents or profit margins, but in moments of pure joy and freedom. And beside it, Tom pinned a new sketch, his latest idea for making the freedom driver even better, because every success story was just the beginning of the next dream waiting to be built. The safety recall notice landed on Tom's desk like a lead weight. Potential control system malfunction in high-temperature conditions. The technical language couldn't mask the gut-punch reality. They had to recall every freedom driver they'd delivered. Tom read the report for the third time, his coffee growing cold beside him. The problem had emerged during extended testing in Arizona. Under direct sunlight, the main control module could experience micro-delays in response time. No accidents had occurred, but the safety margin had narrowed beyond acceptable parameters. "We need to make a decision," Catherine said from the doorway. She'd flown in as soon as the report arrived. "The PR team is waiting for our response." Tom's mind went to Jason, to all the other children whose joy might turn to disappointment. "We recall them all," he said firmly. "Every single one." The next hours passed in a blur of emergency meetings. Derek's team prepared detailed analyses. Production halted. The PR department drafted statements. But it was the calls to parents that hit hardest. "I understand, safety comes first," Jason's mother said when Tom called her personally, "but he's going to be heartbroken." The development team gathered in the prototype room, surrounding the partially disassembled control module. Coffee cups and takeout containers littered the workbenches, evidence of hours spent searching for a solution. The problems in the thermal management, Derek explained, pointing to microscopic stress patterns in the circuitry. Heat build-up affects the response time by milliseconds, but milliseconds matter, Tom finished. He picked up one of the faulty modules, turning it over in his hands. 30 years of fixing cars had taught him that sometimes you had to step back to see the whole picture. Sarah wheeled into the room, her face concerned. "I heard about the recall. Can I help?" Tom looked at her thoughtfully. "Actually, yes. Tell me, when you're using the controls, what does it feel like when they're working perfectly?" Sarah demonstrated with her hands, describing the subtle feedback, the immediate response. As she talked, Tom's eyes drifted to the old air conditioning unit humming in the garage window, the one he'd modified years ago to keep his diagnostic equipment cool during California summers. "Derek," he said suddenly, "what if we're thinking about this wrong? Instead of trying to make the system resist heat, what if we help it stay cool?" The next 48 hours were a frenzy of innovation. Tom's garage experience with engine, cooling systems merged with Derek's electronic expertise. Sarah provided constant feedback on control feel. Even Mike contributed, sharing knowledge from his years of working on overheated vehicles in desert conditions. The solution emerged piece by piece, a passive cooling system integrated into the control housing, combined with a software update that could detect temperature changes and adjust sensitivity accordingly. Simple, reliable, and, most importantly, retrofittable to existing vehicles. "It's elegant," Catherine said, reviewing the design. "How soon can we implement?" "We can modify existing units in under an hour," Derek reported. "Mobile teams could handle the retrofits on site, minimize disruption for the families." Tom nodded, but his mind was already moving forward. "We should offer something more. These families trusted us. We need to show them that trust means something." The solution came in the form of an upgrade package. New features they'd been developing for the next model now offered free to all recalled vehicles. Enhanced customization options, improved battery life, a new user interface that Sarah had helped design. The recall notice transformed into an opportunity for connection. Technical teams visited each family, not just fixing the issue, but spending time understanding how the vehicles were being used, gathering insights for future improvements. Jason's mother called a week after their visit. He was disappointed. "At first," she admitted, "but when your team showed him all the new features he'd be getting, I haven't seen him this excited since the first delivery." Late one evening, after the last retrofit report had come in, Tom sat in his old garage chair. The safety recall notice sat on his desk, now accompanied by a new stack of user feedback forms, valuable insights born from a crisis. Rita brought him a fresh coffee. "You know what your father used to say about repairs?" Tom smiled. "Sometimes you have to take things apart to build them better." They finished together. Through the window, he could see lights still burning in the development lab, where Derek's team was incorporating their cooling breakthrough into the next generation of designs. In the setback, they'd found opportunity. In the breakdown, innovation. The recall notice would stay on his desk, not as a reminder of failure, but as proof that doing the right thing, however difficult, was always the right choice. The patent application covered an entire conference table, diagrams, and technical specifications spread out like a roadmap to the future. What had started as a solution to their cooling problem had evolved into something revolutionary, a completely new approach to adaptive vehicle control. "We're calling it the response core," Derek explained to the gathered team. "It doesn't just manage temperature, it learns from it. From everything, actually." His eyes were bright with the excitement of discovery. "The system adapts to each user's unique patterns, environmental conditions, even their daily energy levels." Tom picked up one of the prototype modules. It looked Deceptively simple, a testament to elegant engineering. The real magic lay in how it combined his old-school mechanical insights with cutting-edge, adaptive technology. "Show them," he nodded to Sarah, who had become an integral part of the development team. Sarah demonstrated the new interface, her movements fluid and natural. "It feels different for everyone," she explained. "Watch what happens when I pretend to be tired." She deliberately made her movements less precise. The system smoothly compensated, adjusting its response patterns in real time. "The breakthrough came from the recall," Tom added. "We were so focused on controlling temperature, we didn't see the bigger picture. Every factor that affects performance, temperature, user fatigue, time of day, they're all opportunities for adaptation." Catherine, watching from the doorway, stepped forward. "The applications go beyond our current vehicles," she said. "This could change adaptive technology across the board." The prototype room had become a testing ground for the new system. Children, with different abilities, tried various configurations, each session providing data that refined the response core further. The system learned, adapted, improved. "It's like having a co-pilot," Jason said during his test session. "It knows what I want to do before I even do it." His control had become so natural that he was now helping to train other kids. The engineering team had evolved too. The divide between Tom's practical experience and their theoretical knowledge had dissolved into a powerful synthesis. Young engineers sought his insights on mechanical principles, while he absorbed their expertise in digital systems. "Look at this," Tom called Derek over one evening, pointing to a pattern in the response data. "Reminds me of how power steering systems adapt to different road conditions. What if we—" The conversation lasted hours, leading to another breakthrough in how the system handled varying surface textures. Each insight built on the last, creating something greater than any of them had imagined. 1 month after they began testing the response core, an unexpected visitor arrived at the facility. Dr. Chen from the National Institute of Adaptive Technology had seen their preliminary results and flown in to observe personally. "This isn't just an improvement," she declared after watching a full demonstration. "This is a paradigm shift in how we approach adaptive systems." The patent application reflected this transformation. Pages of technical specifications described not just a control system, but a new way of thinking about human-machine interaction. Each diagram, each careful annotation represented countless hours of testing, refinement, and breakthrough moments. "Remember when we thought the recall was going to sink us?" Rita mused, bringing coffee to the team as they prepared for another late night of testing. Tom smiled, watching through the window as a young girl experienced her first successful drive using the response core. Her laughter echoed through the facility, the same joy he'd heard from Sarah all those months ago, but now enhanced by technology that seemed to read her mind. The final section of the patent application detailed future applications: rehabilitation equipment, prosthetics, educational tools. The response core's ability to learn and adapt opened doors they'd never considered. "You've built something extraordinary here," Catherine said, signing the last page of the application. "Something that goes far beyond what any of us imagined. When we started," Tom thought back to his days fixing cars in the old garage. He'd always believed in listening to machines, in understanding their language. Now they were teaching machines to listen to people, to understand and adapt to human needs in ways that seemed almost magical. Through the facility's windows, he could see the sun setting behind his old garage sign. Soon, products bearing the response core technology would help thousands of children find their freedom. But more importantly, they'd shown that setbacks didn't have to be endings. Sometimes they were just the beginning of something better. The world map on the conference room wall was dotted with colored pins, each one representing a location where the response core technology would soon change lives. Red pins for manufacturing facilities, blue for research centers, green for distribution hubs, and yellow, dozens of them, marking partner hospitals and rehabilitation centers. Phase 1 begins next month, Catherine explained to the board members gathered around the table. We start with 3 centers, here in California, 1 in Boston and 1 in London. Tom studied the map, remembering when his whole world had been contained within a single garage. Now, pediatric mobility specialists from around the globe were reaching out, eager to implement the response core system. Tell them about Tokyo, Sarah prompted. She'd become such a regular fixture in meetings that nobody blinked at her contributions anymore. The Japanese Medical Tech Consortium, Catherine smiled. They're not just interested in our vehicles. They want to license the response core for their entire line of pediatric mobility devices. The expansion wasn't just about geography. The technology they'd developed was finding applications they hadn't imagined. Rehabilitation equipment, prosthetic limbs, custom interfaces for children with severe motor limitations. Each adaptation teaches the system something new, Derek explained, pulling up the latest data. The more devices we deploy, the smarter the core technology becomes. It's creating a network of knowledge. Tom thought about this as he walked through the prototype room later that day. What had started with one little girl watching kids ride bikes had grown into something that could help thousands of children around the world. Mr. Martinez, a video call was waiting in his office. A doctor from a children's hospital in Cape Town. We have 30 children here who could benefit from your technology. How soon can we begin training our staff? The questions were always the same, no matter where they came from. When can we start? How many children can you help? How quickly can you scale up? The answers were taking shape in the new facilities, rising around the original garage. Training centers where medical professionals could learn to customize the response core for their patients. Manufacturing spaces designed to produce components that could be assembled locally, reducing costs and delivery times. We need to think about accessibility, Tom insisted during a planning meeting. Not just physical accessibility, financial too. Every child deserves this chance. Catherine had already been working on that angle. A foundation was being established, funded by licensing fees from commercial applications of the response core technology. For every corporate client who used their system in high-end medical equipment, dozens of children would receive adapted vehicles at minimal cost. The expansion brought challenges, of course. Cultural differences needed to be considered. Local regulations varied by country. Each new application required testing, certification, training programs. But they had built something that could scale. The response core's adaptive nature meant it could be customized for different needs, different cultures, different circumstances. A child in rural India could have their device optimized for unpaved roads. A user in Norway could have systems rated for extreme cold. Look at this, Sarah called Tom over one afternoon. She was video chatting with a girl in Australia who was using a response core-equipped wheelchair to play basketball. The system was learning from her movements, anticipating her needs during the game. The map in the conference room gained new pins every week. Partners in Brazil wanting to establish a research center. A children's hospital in Germany adopting the technology for their rehabilitation program. A medical school in Singapore incorporating response core training into their pediatric specialty program. Tom kept his father's old toolbox in his office, a reminder of where it all started. But now it sat beside samples of response core components from manufacturing partners around the world. The simple dream of helping one child drive had evolved into a global network of innovation and hope. Sometimes I wonder, he said to Rita one evening, looking at the world map, what Dad would think of all this. Rita smiled, adjusting a pin that marked their newest partner facility in Montreal. He taught you to fix what was broken, she said. You're just doing it on a bigger scale than he could have imagined. Through his office window, Tom could see the lights of the original garage, still open, still serving the local community. But now it was also the heart of something much larger, a worldwide network of people working to give children freedom, independence, and joy. The original garage keys felt heavy in Tom's hand as he unlocked the door early one morning. While the global operation hummed around him, he still started each day here, in the space where it all began. The familiar smell of oil and metal brought him back to simpler times, though the tools on the walls now told a different story. "Special delivery today?" Rita asked, bringing his coffee. Even with a full administrative staff next door, she still insisted on this morning ritual. "Mike's bringing her in at 9, Tom nodded. "Thought it should happen here where Sarah first started." The "her" was Linda Martinez, no relation, but the coincidence hadn't escaped anyone's notice. She was 8 years old, lived just 3 blocks away, and had been watching the facility grow from her bedroom window for months. "My granddaughter says Linda's been sitting in her wheelchair outside the fence during recess, watching the test drives," Rita said softly. "Just like Sarah used to watch the bikes." Tom ran his hand along his father's old toolbox. Inside, mixed with the well-worn wrenches and sockets, now sat the precision tools used for response core calibration. Old and new, working together. At 9 exactly, Mike's tow truck pulled up, though he hadn't needed to tow anything in months. His company now specialized in delivering adaptive vehicles, but he still drove the same old truck. "Look who I found," he grinned, helping Linda and her mother from the cab. Linda's eyes went straight to the vehicle waiting in the garage, a next-generation Freedom driver, customized in her favorite shade of purple. But this wasn't just any production model. Tom had assembled it himself, right here in the original garage, just as he had Sarah's first car. "Is it really mine?" Linda whispered, echoing words Tom had heard so many times now, but which never failed to touch his heart. "Want to see how it works?" he asked, kneeling beside her wheelchair. The response system hummed to life, already beginning to learn her patterns, her needs. "I know how it works." Linda's eyes lit up. "Sarah showed me videos. She says it learns from you, becomes part of you." She demonstrated the control movements with her hands, muscle memory from hours of practicing with a simulator. Tom smiled. Sarah had become a regular speaker at children's hospitals, explaining the technology in ways kids could understand. She was starting college next year, engineering of course, with plans to join the research team during summers. The next hour was familiar, yet new. Linda's first tentative touch of the controls, the response core adapting to her movements, learning her style, the moment of breakthrough when technology and user became one. "Mom, look!" Linda executed a perfect figure 8, her laughter bouncing off the garage walls. The sound merged with the echoes of every child who'd found their freedom here, Sarah, Jason, and hundreds more. Through the open garage door, Tom could see the massive facility that had grown around this humble space. Engineers in labs developing next-generation systems, manufacturing teams assembling components, training sessions for medical professionals from around the world. But here, in the original garage, it was still about one child, one moment of joy. "Mr. Martinez," Linda's mother touched his arm. "The other day, Linda asked me something. She wanted to know if, when she grows up, she could work here, help make these for other kids." Tom looked at Linda, now showing Mike how she could make the vehicle respond to the slightest touch. He saw Sarah in her enthusiasm, Jason in her confidence, every child who'd ever dreamed of freedom in her joy. "Tell her there'll always be a place here for dreamers," he said. That evening, after everyone had gone, Tom sat in his father's old chair. The keys to the garage lay on the workbench beside design specs for the next innovation, the past and future together. Through the window, he could see Linda showing her friends her new Freedom driver, their excited faces pressed against the fence, just as neighborhood kids had once gathered to watch Sarah. The circle hadn't just closed, it had expanded, grown, reached out to encompass the world. But its heart was still here, in a garage where dreams were built one child at a time. The grand opening banner stretched across the entrance of the new Adaptive Dreams Innovation Center, its message simple but powerful: building freedom, one child at a time. Below it, hundreds of people gathered for the official launch. Families, engineers, medical professionals, and most importantly, children in wheelchairs, adaptive vehicles, and freedom drivers. Tom adjusted his tie nervously. The suit felt strange, after decades in work shirts, but today was different. Today marked the official transition from a garage operation to a global force for change. Ready? Catherine appeared beside him, tablet in hand. The governor's about to arrive, and the satellite feeds are live with our other centers worldwide. On massive screens around the courtyard, faces appeared from London, Boston, Tokyo, and other locations where adaptive dream centers were simultaneously opening. What had started in a small garage had become a worldwide network of hope. Mr. Martinez, Jason's voice cut through the crowd. Now 12, he'd grown tall, but his smile was the same as ever. He maneuvered his latest generation freedom driver with expert precision. Look how many of us there are. Indeed, the courtyard was filled with freedom drivers of every color and configuration. Children who'd received the early models had returned to celebrate, many now mentoring newer users. Their vehicles showed the evolution of the technology, from Sarah's original design to the latest response core-equipped models. Sarah herself stood near the podium, reviewing her speech notes. At 18, she'd grown into a poised young woman, already accepted into multiple engineering programs. Her original minicar held a place of honor in the facility's atrium, alongside the first prototype of the response core system. "Tom!" Mike called out, pointing to the sky. "Look who's here!" A familiar helicopter approached, but this time no one was surprised. It carried a special passenger, Dr. Emma Chen, Catherine's mother and one of the world's leading pediatric neurologists. She'd been instrumental in expanding the response core technology into medical applications. The ceremony began with a video montage playing on the big screens. Sarah's first drive, Jason's letter, Linda's recent test run, and dozens of other moments that had shaped their journey. Tom watched the faces in the crowd as they saw their own stories reflected in others. "When I first landed a helicopter at Tom's garage," Catherine began her speech, drawing laughs from the crowd, "I thought I was just looking for help for my daughter. Instead, I found a partner in revolutionizing how we think about adaptive technology." The presentations continued, technical demonstrations, testimonials, plans for the future. But the real magic happened between the official moments. A young girl showing a newly arrived boy how to optimize his controls, parents exchanging stories and contact information, engineers from different continents discussing new applications. "Remember when fixing carburetors was the highlight of our day?" Rita mused, appearing at Tom's side with his coffee. Some traditions never changed. Before Tom could respond, Linda wheeled up rapidly. "Mr. Martinez, come quick. We're doing a parade." Sure enough, the children had organized themselves into an impromptu procession of freedom drivers, led by Sarah and Jason. They wound through the courtyard in a rainbow of colors and configurations, each vehicle as unique as its driver. The global feeds showed similar celebrations happening worldwide. In London, children raced through an obstacle course. The Tokyo Center demonstrated new rehabilitation applications. Boston unveiled a prototype sports program. Tom, Catherine, touched his arm. "It's time." He approached the podium, his hands trembling slightly. The noise of the crowd faded as he looked out at the sea of faces, each representing a dream made real, a barrier broken, a life changed. "When I was a boy," he began, his voice steady despite his nerves, "my father taught me that fixing things wasn't just about tools and parts. It was about understanding what was broken and finding a way to make it whole again." He gestured to the original garage, still standing proudly beside the new facility. "In that garage, we didn't just fix cars, we built dreams, and now, together, we're building them on a scale I never imagined possible." The crowd erupted in applause, but Tom wasn't finished. But we're not done. Every child deserves the chance to write their own story of freedom. And as long as there are dreams to build, we'll be here to build them. As if on cue, the parade of freedom drivers circled one final time, their young drivers cheering. Above them, the banner rippled in the breeze, its message a promise to every child still waiting for their chance to drive, to explore, to be free. The family photo wall in the Innovation Center's main lobby told 1,000 stories, smiling faces from around the world, each capturing a moment when freedom became possible. Tom often found himself drawn here during quiet moments, remembering names, faces, stories that had shaped their journey. 1 year after the grand opening, the wall had grown to cover an entire corridor. Today, he added a new photo, a young boy from rural Minnesota taking his first solo drive in the snow, the response core system adapting flawlessly to the challenging conditions. Still adding to your collection? Sarah's voice carried from her wheelchair. Home from her first year of engineering school, she'd grown more confident, more determined. The technical insights she brought from her studies were already influencing their next generation of designs. Just got this one this morning, Tom smiled, adjusting the frame. Their local mechanic helped with the delivery, used to restore old farm equipment. Now he's our certified installation specialist for 3 counties. They walked and rolled together through the facility. The original garage remained operational, not just as a museum piece, but as a working shop where Tom still spent time developing new ideas. He believed innovation needed to stay grounded in practical experience. In the main workshop, Linda was showing a group of visiting children how the response core adapted to different users. At 11, she'd become one of their most effective young ambassadors, breaking down complex technology into understandable terms. It's like having a friend who really gets you, she explained, demonstrating how the system learned from each user. The more you use it, the better it understands what you need. The research wing buzzed with activity. Derek's team was working with medical partners worldwide, expanding the response core's applications. Rehabilitation centers reported breakthrough results. Children who'd struggled with traditional therapy were making remarkable progress with adaptive systems. Tom! Catherine waved him into the conference room. Tokyo just sent the preliminary results from their pediatric prosthetics trial. The response patterns are extraordinary. But it wasn't all about expansion and innovation. Tom had insisted on maintaining the personal connection that had started it all. Every week he set aside time to work directly with local children, understanding their needs, learning from their experiences. Sometimes the smallest adjustments make the biggest difference, he often told his engineering teams. You have to listen to the users, not just the data. The mentorship program had grown beyond expectations. Teenagers who'd received the first freedom drivers were now helping new users, sharing their expertise, building a community. Jason had started a sports league, organizing friendly competitions that showcased what the vehicles could do. Rita still brought Tom his morning coffee, even though she now managed a full administrative staff. Some things shouldn't change, she'd say, setting the cup on his workbench. Today, she found him tinkering with a new control configuration. What's this one for? She asked. Girl in Australia, he replied, making a minute adjustment. She has limited finger movement but amazing foot control, so we're redesigning the interface to work with what she does best. The afternoon brought a video call with their London centre, where Mike was training local technicians. He'd found his calling in teaching others how to customize and maintain the vehicles, traveling between centres worldwide. They get the technology. Quick enough, he reported, but I make sure they understand what you taught us, Tom, that it's not just about the machines. It's about the kids. As evening approached, Tom walked through the quiet facility. The labs were empty, the workshop still. But through the windows, he could see lights in the parking lot, where Linda and her friends were having an impromptu race night. Their laughter carried through the walls, a reminder of why they did this work. In his office, Tom's father's toolbox sat beside the latest response core prototype. He opened it, running his fingers over the worn tools inside, a reminder that the biggest dreams often start with the simplest acts of caring. The family photo wall caught the last rays of sunlight, each picture a window into a life changed, a barrier broken, a dream realized. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new stories to add to their collection. But for now, Tom simply listened to the sound of children playing outside, their freedom drivers moving in perfect harmony with their wishes, their joy echoing across time from that first afternoon when Sarah watched kids riding bikes past his garage. Some dreams, he realized, never stop growing. They just find new dreamers to carry them forward.